How's it going, everyone? My name is True Wonder Dog, and I've seen many people in the comments of past videos asking whether or not Kitana is good in this game. And while I do personally think they nerfed Kitana a little bit too hard, I still wouldn't say she's bad in her current state. However, she is one of the more honest characters, and her combo damage is a bit lower than I think it rightfully should be. So today I wanted to take the time to look at all of her special moves, her attacks, all that fun stuff. That way we can finally decide if she's good as she is, or if she does need some buffs here and there. So without any further ado, let's start the breakdown. So first up, I want to check out her universals. So the forward throw, pretty decent, knocks the opponent far away, and Kitana is pretty good at zoning, so the distance seems fair. What about the back throw? Let's see. Alright, a bit closer. I like that. We can do the jump in, we can do the jump in into flutter into another jump in. Really good spacing actually, so the throws are pretty solid. What's the sweep like? Oh yeah, her sweep is ridiculously bad, by the way. Like, the range on this thing is not very good at all. And if the opponent's walking backwards, because this game is very footsie based, they can easily walk away from your sweep distance, so it's not the best. But thankfully her short hops are okay. Nothing bad there. Pretty fairly consistent range, nothing too special, but not bad either. So that's pretty darn good. Her uppercut's also pretty good. I like it a lot. So as far as her basic stuff goes, she seems pretty solid. Her throws are good for zoning or for keeping the opponent within jumping distance. Her sweep could certainly be a bit better, but it's not terrible either. And her short hops seem pretty good. I like her short hops quite a lot. And her jump ins are also pretty standard too. Jumping 1, pretty decent range. Jumping 2, a bit more damage. It's good for combos. It's a bit delayed, so you do want to learn the timing, otherwise you do it last minute, it doesn't actually connect. You want to be careful with that. It's a bit slower, but it does have a bit more damage, so it's good for combos, and her jumping kicks are also pretty good too. So I think she's pretty solid overall when it comes to her universal kit. So next up, let's look at these attack strings. So as you can see, Kitana has quite a lot of attack strings. In fact, she has so many I can't actually fit all of them. There's still one missing, and that's this right here. However, don't worry, I certainly will put it up eventually. But the point is, she has so many attack strings. So let's go ahead and talk about all of them. So she has this one, Dark Empress. So Dark Empress is a very good punish tool. If the opponent does something unsafe and you block it, you do this. However, unfortunately, Kitana does not have any overheads to worry about, so the opponent can crouch block all day. So unless you're fighting a beginner, you're not going to land that third hit. This first 2 hits are pretty good for punishing though, and they're also good for ending combos and sometimes extending them as well. So it certainly does have its uses. It's very fast, and the range is not bad either. And one thing I did forget to mention earlier is that her down 1 is actually slower than most characters on the roster. However, the range is better than most characters, so I guess it kind of evens out. And her down 3 is actually her fastest poke. The range is not quite as good, but most characters down 1 is their fastest. Not Kitana, it's down 3. So if you want to main Kitana, that's important to know. If you want to interrupt attacks, it's down 3, whereas down 1 is more of a distance poke, but it's still rather fast. Okay, so back to the attack strings. No Mercy. This string is interesting, so I personally never really use it. It's not that great. It is mids, so the opponent can't duck any of it. That's nice. However, I don't find myself using it, and honestly I never see it a high level play either, so we can go ahead and skip over that. At least it is safe on block though. So next up we have Dark Deception. This is one of your go-to hit confirms because you have all day to see if it hits. If it does, you do fan lift. And if it doesn't, you can either stop right there or try to finish it. And this last hit will actually crushing blow if it's a whiff punish, or if it's a counter hit. So it's very good for whiff punishing, and it's also good for punishing very, very unsafe things. So this is for punishing anything even remotely unsafe, but this, if you can land it, is your best punish, because my god, it does 30% damage, which in my opinion might be a bit too high, but since Kitana isn't necessarily great, I don't recommend they change it just yet. It's fine as it is, since Kitana is definitely lacking in a few areas. And then we have Edenian Dance. So once again, another string that I never really use, and I don't see it online very much either, or at tournaments. So not much to really talk about here. I used to kind of use it when the game first came out and I had the review copy. I would do this to knock the opponent out of the air, and I would do her fan. So I would do this, and then fan, and then I would dash in and finish it, but then they nerfed her fan, so I can't even do that combo anymore. So I no longer use this string one bit. It's honestly not worth your time in my opinion. How about the follow-up though? What about Noble Assault? Once again, I don't use this one. It looks really cool, but I feel like you're never gonna personally use this one online. So I say just delete it from your memory, just like a Denian Dance. But then we have Follow Me and Dark Empress. Both of these attack strings can be very, very useful. In fact, they're so good that they're almost the only attack strings you need for Kitana. They're just so darn good. So let me go ahead and explain why. So first up, back to the very first hit is your go-to whiff punish in the neutral. It has fantastic range, and if you land it, you have all day to hit confirm into her fan, and you have the sneaky low in there. Which again, if you know how to fight Kitana, you're going to crouch block all day anyway, but against many players, they forget to stay crouching, they stand up naturally, and so they get caught by that low. So it does have a bit of a mix-up factor. So it's a great whiff punish, it's great for getting in, it's a fantastic hit confirm, and it has a mix-up in it as well. And that's just the first 3 hits. Now the next part is where things get interesting. So you want to use Dark Empress if the opponent is constantly crouch blocking because you have an overhead, and if this overhead lands, you get a crushing blow, which does some pretty decent damage. You can't combo after it, sadly, and that's true for most of Kitana's crushing blows. However, it is still some pretty chunky damage, so I recommend not forgetting about it. And then, if you want to keep yourself more safe, you actually do the other. You do this. And this catches so many players even at high level, and it's because many pro players like to stop after this hit if it's blocked, and then go for a throw. Because if the opponent does block, they're left a lot closer, and they expect that overhead. And they actually can't interrupt this overhead. That is one nice update they gave her during the patch. Most of it was nerfs, but that was one little buff. They can't down one out of that overhead, they have to block it. They gotta respect it. And a lot of Kitana players know that, so they just won't do it. They'll do the first 3 hits, the opponent blocks, they go for a throw, and it's pretty sneaky stuff. And if the opponent tries to start punishing that by jabbing, they can just finish the string with Follow Me and get that little bit of extra damage. So both these strings have their uses. I'd say Dark Empress is far more useful most of the time, but Follow Me can still be pretty good for trying to punish the opponent if they catch onto your tick throw setups. So both these strings are really, really good. These first 3 hits especially are what you're going to do with Kitana 99% of the time, so make sure to burn that into your muscle memory. They're both very useful strings. And then we have Leave Now. I love to mash this string. So this string might not seem super useful at first because there's no mix-ups and they're just mids, but I do see pro players use this string to end combos since it has fantastic corner carry, and once you do have the opponent cornered, Kitana has some much longer combos. So if you do want the extra corner carry, this can be a pretty useful way to end your combos. And then we have Follow the Leader. This string has some decent range to start off, right? So it can be somewhat decent in the neutral, and it does end with an overhead, so if the opponent crouches all day against Kitana, this can be a pretty good string. It does have that overhead, does cause the knockdown, and it's the perfect distance for her jump setup, so that's really nice. You could jump, flutter. I'm just not getting that flutter. There we go. So you could jump, flutter, and attack again. So it's pretty good for that. They're at that perfect distance. If you do land that overhead, you can jump and do your flutter setups. So that's pretty nice. It does have uses, but at high level, you won't see it very often. And then we have Punishment. Okay, so for this one, you want to be concerned with the first 2 hits, because those are used for ending combos, especially in the corner, or sometimes for extending combos, because it does a bit more damage than the first string, right? Dark Empress, not quite so much damage with the first 2 hits, but for Punishment, a bit more damage. So if you want to maximize your combo damage, especially in the corner, you want to end the combo with these first 2 hits. And last but not least, we have Eternal Damnation. This hits low, so it's a bit sneaky if the opponent is always standing up. Maybe you do a bunch of short hops to make them scared, then you sneak this in. Now in most variations you can't actually combo after this, but in my variation I do have the ground square boost, so I can actually get a bit of extra damage, and then I could enhance that to get a bit more if I wanted to. So bonk, bonk, and I get about 170. Not really worth 1 bar in my opinion, but it could kill the opponent if they're low on health, so in that regard it could be very good. And then if you have the opponent cornered, this can actually be a really good string to start with, though it does require some specific special moves. And that's about it for Kitana's attack strings. As you might have noticed, not very many mix-ups there, except at the end you have some overheads, but for the most part the opponent can crouch all day, and that's not necessarily a big deal. However, why it does become an issue is because Kitana's damage in her combos isn't that much. Even in the corner where her combos get really flashy, you're still barely getting 30% without crushing blows, and that's nothing to be impressed about. And while there are other characters like Sub-Zero whose combos don't do very much damage either, characters like Sub-Zero have those crazy 50-50 mix-ups, and they can use those mix-ups to whittle you down over time. but not only does Kitana do low damage, but she's also lacking in the mix-up department. So I don't think they have to give her more mix-ups per se, but I do think her combo damage should be a bit higher, and perhaps even increase the damage on her base strings as well. So next up, let's talk about the special moves. That's always a lot of fun with Kitana. I like her special moves in this game. Now keep in mind, we're only doing the tournament variations today. So first up we have Fan Toss. Pretty decent projectile, and if you meter burn it, you get 2. However, if you notice, they're both actually high. And that's very rare in this game. Typically when you enhance it, the second one is a mid, which means the opponent has to block it, but not Kitana. Once again, you can crouch all day, and if she throws projectiles, you don't even have to block. You can just neutral crouch and they fly right over your head and you avoid all chip damage. Now in this variation, not as big of a deal because I do have Square Wave, so I can catch you for trying to duck too much without blocking, though that is a bit risky, but I do have that option. However, in her other tournament variation, you can just crouch all day because I have nothing to punish you with from this distance onward. If I'm a bit closer, I have the back too, but once I'm past that, I can't really hurt you with anything. So her projectiles aren't bad, but they're also not the best. Now thankfully she can do it in the air, so that's cool, though she can't enhance it in the air. But it's still pretty good for commanding space. If the opponent likes to jump over your fans, you can jump and then meet them in the air with this, so that's pretty darn cool. And then we have the Fan Lift. This is Kitana's go-to move. It's great for getting meterless combos. However, this move is very, very unsafe on block, so just make sure never to not combo into it. If you do it raw, that's a big mistake on your part. You're gonna get punished. So make sure you do always hit confirm into it, otherwise the opponent can combo you. And of course we don't want that. And then we have Fan Flutter. This move I like a lot. It's not quite as strong as it was in MKX or MK9 because you had the neutral punch, and in this game the neutral punch just starts combos, it does not ground bounce, so it's not quite as strong, but it's still good for avoiding projectiles. It's good for doing a double jump in combo like you saw earlier, so it's very good for tricking the opponent. However, your second attack after the flutter is not an overhead, and I'm not sure why. I kinda wish it was. It still counts as a mid. I kinda wish you could do the double overhead. That would be really cool in my opinion. Not to mention, sometimes the game just gives you the fan lift instead because of how this game's input system works. It thinks you want to land and immediately do the fan lift, so it gives you that. And that's a bit frustrating. It's more of an MK11 issue than anything else. But I do wish you had the option to do a double overhead. That'd be really cool in my opinion. Sadly, you actually can't, but it's still a pretty darn good mix-up. It's 2 attacks from the air, and it gives you a bit extra damage too. And in the corner, it gives you some pretty fun combos. So I really do like Fan Flutter in this game. It's one of my favorite moves Kitana has, even though it is a bit trickier to use. Next up, we have Quick Execution. This is your go-to way to end combos a lot of the time. However, it does switch sides. Even so, it will Crushing Blow if your combo is 8 hits or more for some pretty impressive damage, and sadly without this, Kitana's damage once again is not very much, so I do recommend saving this Crushing Blow until your final round. That way you know for sure you're not wasting it. It's very, very good. It's a nice Crushing Blow to have, and I wish the game had more Crushing Blows like that that rewarded execution and not just whiff punishing and more random stuff like that, but it is a good way to end combos a lot of the time. However, if you have the opponent cornered, do not use it. Instead, do Square Wave or the Fan, something that keeps the opponent in the corner because you don't want to switch sides. So even though it's a great go-to combo ender because it has good damage, it's not always your best option, especially if the opponent's in the corner, so just be warned. And then we have Square Wave, the booty. I like this move. Once again, if the opponent's ducking all your projectiles and you have the range on them, boom, give them the booty. And this move, while unsafe, if you whiff it, it recovers really, really quick. So let me go ahead and try to show that. So if I miss this, I can actually block pretty quickly before the opponent has time to realize that I missed. You can land and attack very quickly or land and block pretty quickly. So I've seen players online use this as a way to close the gap on me. They'll just whip it and then be right in my face and I'll think, oh, I'm gonna uppercut him or I'm gonna jab. And sure enough, they recover pretty quickly and can crouch really fast, so they just duck my uppercut. So it's not the best option, it's kind of a Hail Mary, but it can work in some situations to just do this in the air to cover some distance, or sometimes, even if you whiff it by accident right in their face, sometimes you can still block in time anyway. So it's not the biggest risk if you whiff it, but if they block it, you're in a bit more trouble. And like mentioned earlier, you can enhance this move for a bit more damage. It's not really worth it to me unless it kills the opponent, but I do see a lot of pro players still doing it because it does leave you closer, which means you can go for your go-to pressure moves, your hit confirms. You can go for the best hit confirm in the game, which is this. Or you can even go for your jump and fan setups, right? Your fan flutter. You can do that stuff too. Man, I don't like when it gives me the thing, but you know what? There you go. And last but not least, Square Wave will also crushing blow if you landed far away as a whiff punish or as a counter hit, which seems okay, but I feel like it's not going to happen 90% of the time. And once again, this move's not very good on block, so it's pretty risky on your end to just hope the opponent does something and you catch them with this. Or maybe they're just stupid and just throw out a normal and you can see it and then punish them with it, but it doesn't seem like a very useful crushing blow in my opinion. And then we have Royal Protection. Now this move I do take a bit of an issue with. It absorbs projectiles and then gives you a damage buff. However, if you do it raw, you don't get the damage buff. So it feels a lot weaker than it was in MKX, even though they added more to it because I have to absorb the projectile, which means I'm already probably a bit further away, so the opponent's just gonna run from me. So it's not the best opportunity to get my damage, and I can't even drop my combo and then cancel into it. And that kind of sucks. I kind of wish if they made an update that you could do it raw and still get the damage buff while also being able to beat projectiles with it. That'd be really, really cool in my opinion. Because as it is right now, it's just not very useful to me that I have to absorb the projectile and then get the damage buff. I think both options should be possible. And that's actually it for this variation. I think it's pretty useful. I think it's a better starting variation. It's got some pretty standard utility. You can do the square wave on the ground, which is pretty nice for combos or for punishing the opponent for trying to crouch duck all your projectiles. It has this move for beating projectiles and getting a damage buff. And it also has the flutter, which can be good for double jump-ins, a bit more damage in your combos, good for setups, and it's also great for corner combos. So this variation definitely does have utility. So next up, let's look at her second tournament variation. So this next variation does require a bit more execution. However, I do think it actually has more potential in certain matchups. So first up, we have Adenian Razors. This can be held down to extend how long it stays on screen for. This can be really good for corner combos or for trying to catch the opponent when they're jumping, because it is actually a fairly decent anti-air, but the range horizontally isn't the best, so it's not really good for extending combos, and this does replace her fan lift. So Kitana does lose a lot of her go-to combos, and that's the main drawback here. I kinda wish it hadn't been the same input, because the fan lift is just so darn useful. Now once again, for corner combos, this move can be the bomb, and it's also a pretty good anti-air, but it just sucks that I have to sacrifice my fan lift, and that's why this variation is not going to be the go-to for many players, even Kitana mains. And next up we have Half-Blood Stance. My Queen Melina. Hopefully she's still in the game at some point, but this move is very useful for combos or mix-ups, all that good stuff. It's also very good at zoning. It's honestly an all-around useful move. So first up, we have the ability to cancel it. You just press circle again, and you cancel rather quickly. So it could be good for a mix-up. You do it real quick and then throw. It does cost you 1 bar, but it's still a pretty solid mix-up, unlike poor Kung Lao, where he cancels so darn late you still have time to hit him. If you want to cancel this, it's actually a very solid mix-up. It's so fast. You could in fact even cancel it before the overhead. So for example, she has this string, right? And the overhead's coming. Instead, you just cancel into this, and then throw, right? That could be very, very sneaky. Now the opponent was too far away there because they weren't blocking, but trust me, it's a very good mix-up. You think the overhead's coming, you cancel it, go for a throw, or even go for a low instead, and that low in the corner leads to a full combo. So it's a very, very sneaky ability to be able to cancel it that quickly. And then we also have the dive kick. So the dive kick actually tracks the opponent's location, so pretty strong. However, it's a mid, it's not a mix-up, although if the opponent does try to punish you for the dive kick, you could try to enhance it and save yourself, though it does throw very high above you, so it's not nearly as good as what Melina had in MKX where she did her size. The size were never a guaranteed way to save you, especially at high level, but against players who are a bit more casual or just online warriors, you could use the size to save yourself. Here, it doesn't seem nearly as effective. You can still do it, but it's very, very late, it's a bit tough to time, and chances are the opponent's going to still punish you unless they have the reactions of a grandma. Not my grandma though, she has crazy reactions, so you can't beat her with this. But maybe some grandmas you could actually beat them by amplifying the move. However, the Seeking Size. These are really good. These actually make Kitana a pretty scary zoner. They track the opponent's location, as you can see. And not only that, but you can also direct them. So let's say the opponent wants to jump away from your size on reaction. Well, you can just hold forward, and that will actually catch him. It landed behind her, by the way. You couldn't see it, but it landed behind her when I did that. Let me try again. There we go. So I held forward and it flew behind her, and if I hold back, it lands in front. So if the opponent wants to jump forward to avoid it, they can get caught too. So if they're trying to punish you, they want to jump in and get a combo. Hold back, lands pretty close in front of you if they're close, really good for anti-airing in some situations, but the point is it's a mid, so the opponent has to block it unlike your default fans, and it can also be great for zoning since you can angle it. So it's honestly really darn good. And to make this move even better, if you land 3 of them, then you have her best crushing blow, which is gutted. This not only does great damage, but it also launches the opponent to extend combos. Now I didn't land enough size there. Let me land a couple more. I gotta land 3 and then I can get it. And this will actually launch the opponent into the air. So not only more damage, but also a combo extension. And that's the only crushing blow Kitana has that actually extends combos, so it's very rare and also very useful. So even though you do lose your fan lift in this variation, you do still have some options for comboing. They're just a bit more unorthodox. The Adenian Razors are mainly for in the corner, and then you have Gutted, which can combo in any situation and also has pretty good damage. So I honestly don't hate this variation. I do think it has potential. The zoning is a lot better for sure, and you do have the new combo routes in the corner. I just wish you didn't have to sacrifice your fan lift. It's just such a good move. I kind of wish the developers hadn't done that. It would have made this variation a lot more useful. I feel like at high level, and even online competitively, most people aren't going to use this variation in ranked, mainly because you do lose access to your go-to combo extenders, and that's just a bit annoying to deal with. And that's about it for the breakdown on Kitana, so real quick I want to give my final thoughts on why she's a bit weak. Like I mentioned a bit earlier, her combo damage is a bit too low in my opinion. Even when you do spin the bar on her square boost or something like that to get a bit more damage, her combos are still doing less damage than most other characters on the roster, especially when you spin the bar. It's still on the very low end, barely ever 30% unless you're in the corner. And then even with the crushing blows, you're not getting very much extra damage, and that sucks because the crushing blows only once per match, so it's not a very good trade-off in my opinion. And since Kitana doesn't have the mix-up factor that other characters with low combo damage have, I feel like the damage on her attacks and combos is currently a bit too low, and that's the main thing I want to see them address first, and not to mention the fans. So once again, these fans, you could actually combo after them mid-screen, and you can't do that anymore, and that makes me a bit sad because that's always been one of the key things about Kitana, is she can lift the opponent and then do the fans, and even when she hits them, she can dash forward and keep going, and she no longer has that option in this game, and that just kinda sucks, at least outside the corner, so I kinda hope they could bring that back too. However, that does seem a bit strong, so maybe just lower the damage the fans actually do. I think it's a pretty fair compromise, especially since these fans hit high and not mid, even when you enhance them. So they're clearly not that good at zoning, and they want Kitana to be a zoner in this game, you can tell, but she doesn't have any way to really keep you from ducking. So unless she has a life lead, she can't really use these very effectively on you as a zoner. She's only a zoner if she has the life lead. After that, you can just duck all day, especially in this current variation where I don't have the booty, I don't have the square boost, so I can't even use that to threaten you. I have to come in, so if you're a zoner, you can just bully me even harder. So I feel like Kitana should have these fans buffed in some way. Either the enhanced version hits mid, or I can just combo after them from mid-screen. That'd be really cool. I really enjoyed that when the game first came out and I had the review copy. That was awesome. So I'd like them to buff the fans. I think her combo damage should do a bit more, and honestly outside of that, I think Kitana feels pretty solid, honestly. She doesn't need meter for her combo, so that's really awesome, and if you do want to spin the bar, it's pretty much just to get a bit of a better advantage to position yourself for mix-ups, so that feels pretty fair, and she does have some pretty useful crushing blows too. So I certainly do think Kitana is very close to being good in this game, possibly even top tier. But as it stands right now, she has a few things that she's definitely lacking in, which is why I wanted to make this video. So thank you so much for watching everyone, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like down below, it really does help my channel out a ton. And while you're down there, please tell me your thoughts on Kitana as well. Do you think she's fine the way she is, or do you think she does deserve some slight buffs here and there? And finally, why not keep that combo going by subscribing and ringing that bell? That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.